Heidi ho, making my eggs. So, a little further discussion of our seven gates and being greedy for gain. So, what most know as the United States is actually a Title 28 corporation. I've said this many a times. And I know that doesn't click in some people's heads, but a Title 28 corporation, look at it like Chuck E. Cheese. You go into Chuck E. Cheese and they'll give you those little coupons, those little coins, Chuck E. Cheese coins. And you can take those coins and convert them for material objects that they have in Chuck E. Cheese. So it's the same thing with the United States. The United States is a corporation created by the bankers. Creditors. You sold yourself to the creditors. Show me where I sold myself to the creditors. When you think about that, in that term, they've beguiled you. So anyway, you take their Chuck E. Cheese tokens, which are Federal Reserve debt notes, and it all has to do with being greedy for gain, materialism. Kili Koha Adas, all the earth is mine. That's why Ari Maba says you sold yourself. Show me where I sold myself. So anyway, the bankers, that's how they beguile. That's the Satan, the Yetzirah, the evil inclination, which all of us are attached to. Anyway, that's how we're indoctrinated during these lives. So paying a man at the end of the day is what it says we're supposed to do. So a man's due his hire, and you're supposed to give him his hire at the end of the day. So whatever work he did for the day, you're supposed to compensate him at the end of the day. Now, anything above and beyond compensating somebody at the end of the day is being greedy for gain. Why is it greedy for gain? Because you basically want somebody to help you build something, which means you are coveting what belongs to him or her, that individual. You're coveting their sweat equity, their labor. They got to give you a portion of their sweat equity on credit. And you're going to pay them later for that credit. So that's how you've been beguiled. You think what you're doing is actually good. And then you're going to turn around and use that Social Security system that was created by the bankers. And that's how you're going to compensate them. Well, that's a Social Security trust account. It's a trust account. Everything that you do when you use that Social Security trust account, you are expressing that trust. So you're giving the labor to the bankers. Reason for taxation. Anyway, the thing is, the reason why you've been beguiled is if you knew you were actually not compensating the individual. So you're giving the individual debt. Pure and simple. You're giving them debt. You're not compensating them. You're compensating a trust account created by the bankers. The same as calling that man a slave or woman, whatever. So the whole system is set up on theft. And then what happens is these bankers, these creditors, will go to war with other countries. But you're partially to blame for it. You're partially responsible because you're backing their system. And they think it's humorous. They're not stupid. They're not ignorant men and women. They think it's humorous. That you're actually that stupid that you think that's you. That trust account is you. You claim ownership of it and it actually belongs to them. That's why you're paying them taxes. Because you're dumb enough to believe that's your trust account. So you use that Social Security trust account as identification. They used to say right on those Social Security cards not to be used for identification purposes. They used to say right on them. But anyway, you can't blame anybody but yourself. Because it does come down to being greedy for gain. So, adding house to house and field to field. Wanting to own. And what's the purpose of wanting to own what belongs to the Lord? Kili Koha all the earth is mine. Well, it's evidence of a couple things. Evidence of one thing, don't walk next to our Imam, so you don't see our Imam in all things. Because if you did, you wouldn't be trying to racketeer from other people. You would understand that there's a cause for every effect. And when you try to take what our Imam gave somebody else, which is the very life force, the very ruach, the breath of life, that our Imam gave somebody else, when you try to take any portion of their life, their sweat equity, you're greedy for gain. But ultimately, you're racketeering from our Imam. Show me where I sold my soul to the creditors. You know, it's amazing when you really start looking at things that way. So anyway, the United States and all these other corporations, they like to showboat, create theater, you know, drop 30,000-pound bunker busting bombs in places, and then send all their warships out and all this other crap. That's theater. That's just freaking theater is all it is. Anyway, that's the issue with the whole system. You've been beguiled. So the more we fail to guard our 7 gates, the more attached we are to materialism. And I was there, so I know. And a lot of you are still there, but this may resonate with those who it's meant to resonate with. So I go out and I purchase a couple houses and I start saying, hey man, I'm making some pretty good debt notes off of this. And I get greedy and I want to get a couple more houses. Then I get a couple more houses. Then I get a couple more houses. Then I get a couple more houses. Before you know it, I'm making a lot of debt notes off of other people's sweat equity to charge them to live on my Abba's land. And I become greedy. Then I turn into a slumlord. I'm not worried about maintaining the property. I just want to make profit off of it, which happens to quite a few people. But I might become somebody like Donald John Trump or Biden. Get to a point where I'm so damn greedy that I'll take advantage of the individuals that actually came and gave me their sweat equity, their labor, and say, well, that's what happens. You got to expect that. You know, things don't go right with my business. You got to expect to take a loss yourself too. So I'm only going to give you 10 cents on the dollar for every dollar I owe you. That's the mind of a sociopath, a psychopath. So that's evidence of mass psychosis because everybody thinks that's normal. Normal way to live. Capitalism. Give me. As long as I'm getting from somebody else. So that's being greedy for gain. If you take anything from another man or woman, you accept anything from another man or woman that is their sweat equity, their labor, their currency, their very life force that they were given for yourself to profit off of in any way, shape, or form. You're greedy for gain. Can't say you're not, because you are. It's a hard pill to swallow, but you are, because I was there. I know. And we are all being beguiled by the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. So anyway, that's the message. You can't say you're not greedy for gain if in any way, shape, or form you want any kind of control over another man's autonomy, another man's labor, another man's sweat equity. So not being greedy for gain, that would mean if I start doing something, let's say I start building houses and I need help, then it would be a co-op. Everybody is treated as an equal according to the labor that he gives. And that's what he receives, is the labor that he gave. One man does not make a profit off of 10 others, or even 2 others. That's called being greedy for gain. Because if you weren't greedy for gain, you wouldn't want to profit off the other individual's labor. You'd want to see them being fully compensated for their labor. That's a message for today. Don't be greedy for gain. Guard your 7 gates. God bless. Much love.